My life before I became a Christian was quite eventful. I grew up in a home where there was not any religion, and the only time I heard the word Jesus Christ was when my dad hit his head on a clothesline, and I swear. Yeah, so I had older siblings, and they were great, and my brother played lots of music, and my sister worked very hard, and my other brother was the typical brother that would punch me when he walked past and that sort of stuff. But we never went to church. There was just no religion. I would call it an atheistic home. The only time I think I ever remember going to church was when we went to like a christening once, and it freaked me out actually. Just when I was a toddler, I looked around and saw all these big statues, and I could feel that there was something a bit weird about the church. So it kind of put me off a little bit, to be honest. And I grew up not recognizing Jesus or Christ or the church as anything that I'd want to seek out spiritually. My dad was an alcoholic, so there was a lot of fear in the home. He'd come home on occasions, or quite a few occasions, drunk, and cause a few issues with my mum and my sister. And so there was a lot of fear and a lot of turmoil in the home for a long time when I was a kid. I think I was always spiritually aware. I had a lot of nightmares when I was a child. I heard things, I think it sounds weird. I heard things. It sounds like that. I see things, but I did. I used to be very perceptive when it came to hearing things. And for instance, the static on the television used to freak me out as a young child. I'd just look at the static and hear it, and I couldn't handle it. There was something above and beyond what I was seeing or imagining that was quite. I don't know, maybe it was a spiritual perception. I'm not sure what it was, but I was always aware that there was something else or something bigger. I just did not look at religion as being a part of what that was. I had a lot of trauma as a kid and as a teenager. We lost my brother in a car accident when I was 10, and that was very, very difficult. So I grew up with a bit of a chip on my shoulder. I was quite angry. I didn't have anywhere to put all of that grief, really. When I looked at spiritual things, it was usually in the dark side of spiritual things. I hung out with people that were right into occult practices, and when I was a young teenager actually, I delved into drugs. So yeah, I was just trying to find the other, the other. I was a bit of a radical teenager, but I did start to settle down. I fell pregnant when I was 16, and to my first boyfriend, and that was a shock. But my mum was incredibly supportive, so yeah, I had my baby, and it just shook me, rocked me to the core. All of a sudden, I wasn't just doing my own thing. I wasn't just a angry teenager using drugs. I was actually going to be a mother of a human being. So it really it set me on a trajectory of delving deeper into the meaning of life, and reading lots of different books, reading lots of psychology books to sort of expand my knowledge on various things. I'd stopped taking drugs as soon as I found out I was pregnant. I was like, whoa, that's not on. So it was just a new, I guess it was an opening towards grounding myself. And then when I was pregnant, I remember saying a prayer, and I didn't pray because I didn't believe in God, but I was like, if this child is healthy, please let me have a healthy child. And that was one of the main prayers I had ever prayed in my life. And she was. And so then I got married to the father of my child about a year after she was born. And then we were both on a quest to find truth, and neither of us had much experience with Christianity. There was a Bible at home, and I remembered when my baby was very young. I remember my mum having a Bible. It wasn't because she was religious, it wasn't because she read it, but it was because it belonged to my brother that passed, and she never wanted to get rid of it. It had his name in it, and it was one of those Gideon's New Testaments that you get in schools. I picked it up, this little red thing about that big, all in King James English. I thought, oh, this is really interesting. And so I opened up the pages, started reading it. It didn't make a lot of sense at first, so I put it down. I think I opened up at Matthew and got the whole genealogy thing. Then when I read this book, The Late Great Planet Earth, I started to read the book of Revelation. And that was heavy going in King James English. So very difficult with difficult words that are no longer used in the English dictionary. But I was reading it and I thought, there's something in this. This is kind of like what I've thought of, but not thought of in conscious thinking. It was like something that I was aware of all my life, but I wasn't able to grasp what it was. I was reading stuff about Jesus, and like I'd never ever heard it before in my life. I'd never, possibly because I'd never been to church, but no one ever told me about this Jesus who did this and said that and did this. And I just remember just feeling like, oh my gosh, he's real. Jesus Christ is real. And this is it. This is the answer. He is the answer. And so I just said a very short prayer one night in my room by myself and said, I know you're real. If I'm worthy, please come into my life. I literally felt his presence as soon as I had said that. That's about the sum total of my prayer. And I just felt this, or it was the Holy Spirit, but it was just a tangible presence that just went from the tips of my toes right up to my head. And I just felt so clean, and I just started weeping. Pretty amazing that God would just like reach down into my situation like that. Yeah, it was quite unusual, I think, to just pick up a Bible and start reading and have the Holy Spirit obviously start to just reveal the whole gospel, pretty much the whole gospel, and not only the whole gospel but biblical prophecies. Not that I understood very much back then, I didn't, but I understood enough to know that this was God that had written this, and this was, this made sense in, if you can make sense out of the book of Revelation in King James English as a brand new Christian, it made sense in a unearthly sort of way. Life since Jesus has been, an incredible journey, and it's still going on. I had ended up having more children to my husband, of course, and then we discovered that 2 of my boys had cystic fibrosis, which is a very difficult recessive genetic incurable disease, and so my oldest son Gabriel passed away when he was 16. And that was probably the most faith-shaking, earth-shattering time of my life. And we had to sort of walk through the grief. And when I say we had to walk through the grief, Jesus walked through that grief with us. I would not have survived that at all if it hadn't have been for his comfort and his love, and even other Christians, that gathered around and helped us during that time and showed their love and showed their support. And so we had high hopes that he was going to be healed physically, and so that was a very difficult thing to walk through. So during that time, prior to him passing and after, we had a lot of support from our church, and not only our church, but other churches on the Central Coast who got behind us. When we were there with him, he said things before he was unable to speak. He said, "Oh, Mum, I can see angels," and he was so close to God that was my comfort, that he was so close to God and he had so much faith. 1997, that happened. The 8th of March 1997, so it was a long time ago now, and a lot's happened since then, and life goes on, and life with Jesus goes on, and his faithfulness is new every morning. His love endures forever. He's faithful and true. As one of the disciples said to Jesus, where else would we go? Where would we go if we didn't follow you, you know?